Over here we have the first process, and here we have a receive, which would kick off the sender process. And down here we have invoke SAML holder of key. Now that's an invoke that's on a partner link that's going to invoke with using a message policy that includes all of those attributes that were listed on the earlier machine, and then we'll wait for a callback from him that will contain the signed header. And what we'll look at first would be for the SAML sender, we have the deployment descriptor for it, and there are two partner links. One is the starter, and that would be the partner link that receives the kickoff message to start the demonstration process. That in itself isn't interesting for us at the moment. What we really want to see is the security policy that's been added to our partner link that's going to perform the invoke, that's going to include our basic auth, username token, signed SAML assertion header, encrypted body, and a timestamp. Going to show in the editor how these would be defined. What you do is you'd hit the ellipsis button down at the bottom, which will bring up a endpoint reference editor, and on the tab labeled policy assertions, there would be all the policy assertions that would be in force for this partner role endpoint. And on here we will have a authentication policy that's used to indicate the HTTP and username token credentials that would be sent to the receiver when we do the invoke. And we would have our username, password, and check off that we're going to use the WSSE username token as a SOAP header. The next thing we're going to send is a SAML assertion as a security header. And here we're going to be sending it as a header on the outbound message. Subject name is AE admin. We're going to use the holder of key confirmation method, and we're indicating that the user was authenticated using password authentication. For timestamp, I'm going to send it on the outbound request, and the time to live for the timestamp is 300 seconds or 5 minutes. And we're going to encrypt parts of the outbound message. And in this case, we're going to encrypt the body under the SOAP envelope. Optionally, you can indicate an alias, and that's the alias stored within the key store used by WSecurity. One thing to remember is that WSecurity, our WSecurity implementation, relies on and takes advantage of the providers and key stores that have been installed on your server. So for encryption algorithms, in order to support all of the various key wrap, you may need to upgrade your JCE providers on the Java runtime that this is running against. You also would need to set up create, install, and set up your key stores that will store your certificates that we're going to be using for signature and encryption. In order to sign messages, you're going to need to have a entry with a private key, for example, and you could indicate exactly which one you want to use by using the alias, or we'll use the default if that's not set. The exact requirements and how these would get set up are covered under the user guide under the WSecurity setup section. And then once all those are added, you can see we have a WSA endpoint reference that would have the target address and the service name information that we would have for any invoke, but also included is this policy assertions that would specify the options that we just saw in the editor. And then when this message goes out and is sent, it goes to the SAML receiver. And the receiver starts when he receives that message that we had sent from the sender, and within the sender we need, or from the message that got sent, we need to grab the X509 info from a SOAP header. And the way that gets specified is there's a policy that where you can map any arbitrary information out of an incoming message into the state of the partner link that is receiving it. And then it will then be available to the Beeple process using a built-in extension function called getMyRoleProperty. And here we're grabbing the X509 certificate. The value of that we pull out. We use that token in an assign statement to create a SAML authentication query, invoke the query, and then we use a dynamic endpoint, which means that we do an assign to the actual partner link itself after augmenting it. And here what we're doing is we want to add the assertion from the SAML response. We want to add it as a header, so that goes under the reference properties. Under WSA, any elements that are children of the reference properties element are added as SOAP headers according to the binding rules. And then we send the callback, and if we look at the receiver descriptor that handles this, all of these are on my role. Again, this is on the receiver side that we're doing this. We are specifying that we're going to be expecting an encrypted message. There's really no options because all of the information about what's been encrypted and how it's been encrypted is carried within the message itself. Same for signature. For authentication, all we're indicating is that when we receive a message, we're going to require that there is a username token header within the SOAP headers. We're going to accept a inbound SAML assertion, a timestamp, and in order to grab the X509 certificate from the inbound request, we're going to add this XPath header map. And what you're doing here is we're creating an expression that will execute this XPath query against the incoming SOAP message, and then we're going to pull the key info out so that then it would be accessible to the variable. And on the callback side, this is another my role that we're using, jumping back over to the SAML sender. This is on the receiver side of this equation. We're going to expect an encrypted message body with a signature. We're going to support signature. We're going to expect that there is a username token and a timestamp. And the signed SAML assertion that got added as a header will be included, or the signature itself will be verified, and the verification will be that the digital signature would indicate that the message hasn't been tampered with, in addition that the certificate of the sender is in fact a trusted certificate, so that would be go through all the normal verification for that. And